Sveiki 15 min skaitytojai, šiandien lankomės Venecijoje, viename iš didžiausių ir sprendžiant pagal atsiliepimus lankomiausių Venecijos architektūros bienalės paviljonų Giardini. Jo statybą inicijavo tas pats žmogus, kuris į Prancūziją norėjo išsivežti Vilniuje esančią Onos bažnyčią, Napoleonas Bonapartas. Panašu, kad patys žmonės labai susidomėję, jiems patinka vaikščioti šioje mistiškoje erdvėje.
I don't see so much in Europe, especially in Italy. So whenever I see it, it makes me really feel a sense of home. My street growing up was all brick like this. We didn't have the concrete or the side. We had brick. The cars drove on brick, and so it's something very unusual that gives you a strong sense of place.
What personally fascinates you about this exhibition?
Okay, so personally I'm very interested in the relationships we have with animals and how we influence them. It's also a personal research I make. The exhibition asks in a very beautiful way how and deals with the question of how modernization, following the idea of a land of milk and honey, how it affected the environment and the animals within it, through the animals. Personally, I found the part that focuses on the cows very interesting and very important to know, because we grow up thinking that cows give us milk with a lot of happiness, and it also gives some facts about artificial insemination, of the amount of pregnancies cows need to go through in order to give milk. So personally, I found it the most interesting part in the research, and the installation of the drawers is very fascinating. The more I stay in it, the more I feel how strong it is to see something. To see animals in this way, animals moving but dead, extinct, in a structure that reminds us of a morgue, of industrial kitchens, of laboratories, of something very clean also. And inside this death, but also life, because it's moving past and future and present. Like, I see it as a very strong installation. And I think also staying in the installation and hearing the audio work, the sound work, that is it adds a lot to the feeling, because it's very weird. It's a recording of bats actually, and modified to be heard by human ear. It does ask in a bigger way, like the Biennale this year is asking how will we live together. And the curators, that are a team of 3 architects and 2 historians, so a multidisciplinary team, are trying to ask, to say, in my eyes, and also hearing them explaining, they're trying to see how can we live together, not only between people, but also if we can learn to live together with animals and with the environment, everything will be easier to live also between people.
Does Israel Pavilion offers us a solution?
It offers us the solution of exiting the idea that architecture is only for people and affects only people. So once we don't just think about planning for people and making landscape for people and not thinking of the consequences, then we will manage to have to treat better the environment and have some solution of living together between everything. Like it's a more holistic point of view.
Okay. So it just distinguishes a problem we have.
Yes, I mean the exhibition is more autocritic of the past. It's not offering future projects and possible developments. One moment. Ok. Posso aiutarvi?
No, non basta, però ormai abbiamo rotto il set. Dovete ricominciare?
No, va bene. No, we don't need to restart.
Ci siamo accorti che
No, we, no worries. You can go around.
Around.
Okay. You were talking about goat problem in Israel. So could you explain to our readers a bit more about that?
Okay, so one of the focuses is the scapegoat, this part is called. And they focus on the story of the black goats in Israel. And as a symptom also of imposing European values of good and bad on a territory that didn't fit these kind of values. What happened is that when the Crusaders, the Christians, also the Templars, then the Jewish Zionists came to Israel, they found a state in a state of a ground in a state of desolation, without a lot of agriculture as they are used to, with rocky mountains, a desert, and a lot of black goats also that were belonging to the local population that were Bedouins, Palestinians, a mixture. And the British started to import white goats. That white goats live in sheds and they don't disturb a lot, while the black goats need a lot of roaming space and they eat everything they find. So from leaves to like leaves on the trees and fruits, whatever they can get. And after the Israeli state was created in 1948, in the year 1950, the first environmental law was issued. That was the limitation of the population of the black goats, taken from the British ideas of black goats are bad, we want only white goats. Also, the new state wanted to keep this. And this law basically hurt directly the population that owned these goats, and also the goats themselves, because they were not allowed to go around and live their lives. And this point is the more optimistic part also of the exhibition, that in 2018 they passed a law to cancel this law, both for the inequality that it makes in the population of goat owners, and also because they understood that for the ecosystem of the country, it's actually good to have black goats, because as they eat everything, they also eat all the dry leaves. And this fact prevents the creation of fires, because it's a hot climate, and one of the other things that was done by earlier settlers is to plant a lot of trees to create a lot of forests, also in areas that were not really used to have forests, and just Actually, in the last weeks, there were a lot of fires next to Jerusalem, and almost every year there are a lot of fires because it's not the trees that feed the climate, and there are a lot of dry leaves that accumulate and they burn when it gets too hot.
Okay. Actually, I was a little bit disturbed when I saw this animal morgue imitation, especially those animals that were placed in jars. Are they real? What is the idea of that?
Okay, so they're all real. The installation exhibits a collection of the University of Tel Aviv, the Museum of Natural History, and it's also, as it's part of the university, it's where they study biodiversity and zoological studies. So the jars that you're referring to with the animals inside, it's a way to preserve animals as I don't know how you say it in English, right? The imbalsamato in Italian, okay. Like the animals that look taxidermied, I think.
I know
okay.
what you're talking about. I will make a comment.
Okay.
No, don't worry.
So basically inside this cabinet, it's also kind of a cabinet of curiosities because you don't know what will exit out of it, and once you have a pelican and like a full animal standing and looking at you but dead. And on the other side you find this drawer full of jars of these animals that we tend to be very scared of. So the idea behind it is first to see animals in a different way and to take out these animals that are only used for study and to show it to other people. The background is different. It's not a museum of history, of natural history. We are in the bienalėje of architecture, sorry, that a few species don't exist anymore at all in the world. So it's also exiting from just the local into a more global problem of the extinction of animals. Well, the bees population has a problem in all the world, especially because there are a lot of species of bees that they pollinate flowers a lot, and agriculture, but they don't produce a lot of honey, or they don't produce at all honey. And these bees are being extinct from everywhere. The bees that were existing in Israel in the end of the 19th century, a lot of these species don't exist in Israel anymore. And during in the early 20th century, they imported bees from Italy, which the Italian bee is basically the bee used everywhere in the world today for production of honey, because it produces a lot of honey and it's not that aggressive. So it just became the star bee of the queen bee of every production of honey. And the price is that we lose other species that maybe pollinate in other way or...
Po pokalbio su Izraelio paviljono atstove gavau dovanų. Aplankiusi kelis paviljonus, nusprendžiau truputėlį pailsėti. Iš tiesų jaučiuosi kupina įspūdžių, Truputėlį jaučiuosi pavargusi nuo to, kiek teko apeiti, nes iš tiesų Giardinis yra didžiulis, Giardini yra didžiulė erdvė. Dabar esu apsistojusi tokioje jaukioje pievelėje, kurioje architektūros bienalės lankytojai tiesiog ilsisi. Vieni žmonės tiesiog sugalvojo pasnausti, treti tiesiog romantiškai leidžia laiką. Ši pievelė yra tarp Lenkijos, Rumunijos, Graikijos paviljonų, šalia teka labai gražus upelis. Iš tikrųjų, atmosfera yra puikia ir būtent tokia erdvėje norisi iš tikrųjų patirti meną.
First time in a long time. My first time was in 2009, so it's been 10 years ago. But it's my first time in a long time, when I'm a clear-thinking adult.
Okay. So, what is the most interesting pavilions you've seen?
I really like the concept of Spain, but also Belgium so far, because Spain said what is normal. Oh, and I loved Stockholm, because Stockholm really brought down the message of our generation, is that, because the theme of the Biennale this year is how do we live, how will we live? And Stockholm asked the question, who are we? And they asked and sought for representation, as well as inclusivity and thinking of big globalized melting pot that we're becoming, because that's the theme of this Biennale this year, that we're really a globalized world now since of the internet, and also because of the coronavirus just showed that we're just, the whole economy went into lockdown. And I loved Stockholm. Back to the question, I loved Stockholm and Spain for their views on how the world works.
So, but your main interest field is not architecture, you're as well interested in psychology, philosophy, poetry, wherever.
Yeah, I really like art. I like directors in a sense of doers and people who think and makers. So if it's music, if it's a musician called Gent or Eddie or Hoodie Beep, or if it's an artist called Babu, or anyone that creates or underground Vienna, it's like you have an idea, you have a concept, and then you do. And that's what I love, is like doers.
Okay.
And philosophy and psychology, back to that. Okay. I also just like figuring out how things work, how to improve the world. I'm really big on the reason why we exist on the world is to make an impact.
Okay. Are you going to visit other pavilions in Arsenale?
I really want to visit Arsenale because they have the Dubai one. Okay. And since, the Expo 2020 was canceled due to COVID, so...
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you coming here next year? Because next year they will do contemporary art biennales.
Firstly, I'll be here if Monica is here.
Okay.
And secondly, that sounds... But what is contemporary art, Monica?
Don't ask me that. I don't know.
Well, how I learned in art class was contemporary art is that if you're famous and you need a good concept. And even if you don't follow up on that concept, if you're famous, it's still art.
Okay.
So... some people say contemporary art is trash. Some people are the majority of young people. I don't know. How do you feel about that? I know this is like something.
Okay. This is freestyle interview, so don't worry.
Will it be cut?
We've been visiting the Arsenale as first, and then we came back here to the Garden of Biennale. It was a beautiful, beautiful day. It's kind of warm this time in Venice, but it was super nice. What did you like most in the Arsenale, Elena?
I don't know, maybe the most interesting thing is having all those new ideas, new input. And being able to experience these new ideas and maybe use them in the future in our work. And what do you think?
Yeah, I do agree with my colleagues, and I also think that it's interesting to see how people perceive in different way the same topic and the same thematic, and try to use different technologies to achieve a common goal. So to make a better world with new technologies, to fight climate change and to improve our society living together.
And you said that you work in architecture field?
Yeah.
We work in the landscape architecture field, and we are here visiting the Biennale as a team building exercise. So it is kind of our work. I don't know how to call it. Anyway, it is kind of a team building activities, and we have find a lot of nice ideas here, and I'm really glad that we had the chance to visit it. Yeah.
Did you like Danish pavilion?
It was really, really a beautiful experience. Also because it kind of, you participate in this experience and go through it, and so you don't only go and read stuff and so on. You also participate, like drink and so on. So it's really interactive, kind of.
Yeah, and I also think that it's interesting that water is the main element here, which is treated in different ways. So you could drink, you could walk on it, you could touch it, and also experience other, let's say, other ways of living water.
Danija šiais metais nagrinėjo būdus, bando išspręsti, kaip mums reikėtų visiems sugyventi. Jie pristato projektą, kuriame parodoma co-living spaces, tai yra bendro gyvenimo erdvės. Patalpos yra suplanuotos taip, kad net norint įsipilti stiklinę vandens, tau reikės kito žmogaus pagalbos. Štai pažiūrėkite, kurioje pusėje yra maišytuvas, o kurioje čiaupas.